The story begins with the disciples commenting that the protagonist is pursuing the path of longevity and that he should have ascended as soon as he reached the transcendental tribulation realm. However, his disciples have not reached the level of skill that he expected. One of the disciples, a dark being with blue eyes, comments that this is the protagonist's problem and that they should focus on their own goals. Another disciple mentions that, with their current strength, they could already go out and form their own sects, questioning why they still follow the protagonist. One of the disciples responds that they aspire to be invincible, which requires strength and ability, and that the protagonist's path also requires these qualities. However, they continue to stand by him because they feel indebted to him. Cloudhead, a disciple dressed in white, suggests that the protagonist may be delaying his ascension on purpose, which may also have its advantages. This idea surprises the other disciples. Cloudhead goes on to explain that ascending from the transcendent realm is very different from ascending from the peak of the Mahayana realm. He points out that beyond the known realms, there must be much higher levels. He clarifies that when an ascending tribulation cultivator ascends, even if he skips the Mahayana realm and becomes a loose immortal, the highest he can reach is the earth immortal realm. However, if someone from the Mahayana realm ascends, can reach a high level with unlimited potential. Hence, he himself has not yet ascended, despite being at the 6th level of the Mahayana realm. He advises the disciples to remain calm, for although the Mahayana realm is powerful in the mortal realm, it is insignificant in the higher realm. He also mentions that, given the protagonist's love for his disciples, he will probably remain for a few more thousand years, which can no longer be considered cultivation, but almost a stroll in the mortal realm. The disciples, amazed, ask if the master will really stay on earth for thousands of years. Cloudhead says he is not sure, as it will depend on how much he loves his disciples, but suggests that thousands of years should be the limit. He asks if they will be able to reach the Mahayana realm in that time, to which they all confidently reply that it is only a matter of time. Cloudhead then understands why the protagonist chose them, because, despite being talented, they pursue their goals with ferocity, even knowing the difference in power in the Mahayana realm. As everyone looks at the bonfire, one of the disciples mentions that the chicken joined the group 600 years ago and is still in the nascent soul realm. This surprises Cloudhead, who asks how old the protagonist is now. The chicken replies that she forgot, but believes him to be around 700 years old. This leaves Cloudhead and the other disciples astonished. The scene cuts to Hanju cultivating, already at the 7th level of the Mahayana realm. 19 years have passed, and probably in another 15 years, the protagonist will exceed the Mahayana realm. Anju thinks that cultivating is getting more and more relaxing, but wonders why he feels so restless, as if the heavenly Tao is foreshadowing something. The system then appears and informs him that all of the protagonist's disciples are advancing in realms and he thinks that they must be using steroids. Worried, Hanju makes a hand seal and decides to consult his older brother. The next scene shows the Dao Sword River, where the older brother is nervous, questioning why the protagonist came back and what he wants to ask this time. The protagonist mentions that some people in the mortal world have been very lucky recently and asks if this is normal. The older brother replies that it is normal for lucky people to exist, both in the mortal world and in the higher world, but explains that being lucky does not mean being strong and says that the protagonist is just thinking too much. Even so, the protagonist feels an uneasiness, as if the heaven of the Tao is secretly warning him. The elder brother then comments that although the heavenly Tao is a rule, it is not that strict. Suddenly, he remembers that people can have dying flashes. He drops the cup that falls to the ground, begins searching for something, and mentions that the mortal world of the heavenly Tao may be foreshadowing trouble as a form of self-protection. While still searching, he mentions that it may have something to do with the devil clan, but then stops, and says that the High Court of the Heavenly Realm has decided to exterminate the Devil Clan and that there may be many members of that clan in the mortal world. In the Heavenly Realm, the High Court has made a decision that has left many immortals perplexed. Allow the immortals to enter the mortal world to fight or simply destroy this world. Hanju, surprised and apprehensive, nervously asks his older brother if the other forces of the immortal realm will allow the court to destroy the mortal world. His older brother, always calm, responds with a question. Have you ever stopped to think about how vast the universe is? To us, the thousands of realms are like grains of sand. Destroying one or two will not affect the immortal realm. Junju, still agitated, questions if the High Court will still be worthy of its name after committing such an act. His older brother, with a thoughtful look, asks, how many species has the human race already eliminated? And how many ants died when you used your powers to destroy mountains? He continues, saying that in order to maintain order, the High Court will not hesitate to destroy some mortal worlds. Hanju is apprehensive, and his older brother advises that he should not question the High Court with such a limited vision. Hanju, thoughtful, concludes, so, the one who makes the rules is the one who rules. The longed-for High Realm is just another place where the strongest rules. His older brother agrees, and Hanju asks when the High Court will eliminate the evil clan. The brother replies that it will not take long. At least a century, at most a millennium. He mentions that the forces of the Demon Saint are about to negotiate with the High Court and regrets that the Demon Saint is still in the dark. Hanju thanks him and his brother invites him to train, but he says he will do so on his next visit. As he disappears, Hanju asks if the Demon Saint is called Sun Wukong, the Great Sage. The brother, surprised, answers no, but before he can ask more, Hanju interrupts him. If he isn't, then fine. And he says goodbye. Alone, the older brother wonders about Hanju's true identity and how he knows about the Great Sage. Cut to the mortal world. Hanju, thoughtful, he remembers the last time he thought about the Demon Saint's actions and realizes that he thought he was in the world of the journey. Nothing to the west, but that it was all just a coincidence. He calls his disciple and sends for Fang Liang. While waiting, he reflects on how in the upper realm the strongest rules. The disputes are endless. And that, unless he becomes imperative, he will never ascend. He decides to cast a 6-day curse to weaken two people as much as possible. 10 minutes later, Fang Liang arrives, asking if her master has called her. Hanju says that she has information for her to pass on to the heavenly immortal mansion, but that she must not mention her name. Worried, Fang Liang listens as Hanju say that upon coming out of seclusion, she noticed that many people are having good luck in cultivation. He has figured out that this is a last-ditch effort by the heavenly Tao for self-preservation. Fang Liang, confused, asks if this is dangerous, and Hanju replies that the mortal world may be destroyed, but they can prevent that by eliminating the demon clan. Frightened, Fang Liang listens as Hanji adds that if the heavenly immortal mansion asks for an excuse, she should say that the heavenly court wants to cleanse the demon clan that invaded the mortal world. Instead, the court might consider the mortal world to be allied with the demon world and destroy them together. Desperate, Fang Liang asks when that will happen, and Hanju replies that, at best, within 1,000 years. She runs off, shouting that she will pass on the message immediately. Another of Hanju's disciples asks where he got this information, and he replies that he has some connections in the higher realm, but cannot reveal who they are. Delighted, the disciple thinks about how she will follow her master forever, her eyes shining with admiration. Someone is cooking and tastes the food, commenting that he overdid it with the salmon, but that it is still delicious. As she tastes it, thinks that she may not be as strong as Hanju, but that she certainly surpasses him in culinary skills. Suddenly, someone enters the kitchen and says that Fang Liang wants to speak with him. Takes the communication device, thinking about how talented Fang Liang is and how highly praised by her master. Fang Liang begins to transmit the message. Listening to Hanju's instructions, the scene begins with a great commotion in the mansion. Then the story jumps forward 2 years in time. Now, 3 individuals are kneeling, and one of them, nervously, informs a sinister shadow that several sects have united against them. He fears that if this continues, the demonic clan may be destroyed. The shadow, with an air of superiority, reassures them, stating that he will take care of the situation and destroy the celestial immortal mansion once and for all. Before disappearing, the shadow orders them to continue with their plans, because, when the mortal world is conquered, they will have absolute power. One of the 3, a stitched man, questions why his companion is still in contact with the demon clan. A girl, trying to remain calm, intervenes, saying that if they stand still, they will be doomed. She also reminds him that even if they join forces, they will be no match for Ji Xianxian. The man with eye tattoos, dejected, comments that they are now just pawns in a game of chess, and any move is useless. They must just hope to survive. The girl agrees, adding that even if they ascend, they will not be able to escape their fate. The stitched man, holding a crystal ball, questions whether the demon king managed to ascend, because he received some news from Senior Zhu Yan. He laments the fact that she ascended while they remain stagnant. The 3 of them imagine the demon king sticking out his tongue, wondering why their treatment is so different from his. After a while, the other 2 leave, leaving the stitched one alone in the cave. He wonders when his senior will return. Suddenly, something starts to happen to the crystal. His senior's voice echoes, explaining that it took so long because something went wrong in his cultivation. The senior claims that he heard their conversation and assures them that as long as they are loyal, they will be protected and will be able to ascend. The stitched one thanks him. But his expression falls when he hears that his senior will only return in 100 years. Furthermore, he warns that he can only save him if he distances himself from the demon clan. The stitched one, worried, wonders if he will be able to survive 100 years while being chased by Ji Xianxian. 15 years have passed since Fang Liang contacted Ji Shanshan, and the demonic path has lost its former glory of dominating the mortal world. Zofen reincarnated and cultivated again to fight the demonic clan. New mission. Talents from various sects have emerged, uniting to express their determination to the heavenly court. The scene changes to someone being beaten and scolded for using weapons, as many comrades were hit. The beaten one, unfazed, replies that it is their fault for standing in front of the weapon. Then, a system screen displays some information, and the protagonist comments that all of his disciples are fighting against the demonic path. This means that the heavenly immortal mansion believed Fang Liang's words, which he finds strange, since in his past life, the mansion would never have believed it so easily. He concludes that after saving the world, the leaders of the Holy Lands must respect him, and this indicates that he has evolved. However, when he closes his eyes, he realizes that he made a mistake, since the mansion has many disciples and it is likely that the information was leaked. Suddenly, someone limping appears, calling the protagonist. He says that his ki and blood are disordered, and asks if he also went to crush the demonic clan. The old man replies that he did not, but warns that the immortals of the celestial realm plan to destroy the mortal world. Believing that humans are in collusion with the demonic clan, the celestial immortal mansion ordered the pure jade sect to send disciples to fight the clan. Therefore, the old man thinks that it makes no sense to send his disciples. The protagonist, without hesitation, says to send help if necessary. Surprised, the old man questions if the mansion is just jealous of the growing strength of the pure jade sect. The protagonist reminds him that the immortals are superior, and if the mortals do not cooperate, they will be exterminated. Amazed, the old man promises to send all the disciples of the sect to fight against the demonic clan. The protagonist states that he will defend the sect in their absence, and as the old man leaves, he thinks that he needs to reach the 9th level of the Mahayana realm as soon as possible. That way, even if the immortals decide to destroy the mortal world, he will be able to protect himself. Looking to the side, he asks how much longer Ji Xianxian intends to stay watching. Ji Xianxian replies that he did not come to challenge him, but to see him and deliver something. The protagonist asks what it is and, to his surprise, sees that it is a pot of food. Ji Xianxian proudly comments that it is his favorite dish. The protagonist, surprised, he never imagined that the greatest cultivator in the world would have such ordinary culinary tastes. With a smug smile, Ji Xianxian replies that, in any field, he will always be the best in the world. As the protagonist savors the dish, he feels something extraordinary, as if he is floating freely through the heavens. At this moment, Ji Xianxian takes the opportunity to invite him to join the heavenly immortal mansion sect. However, the protagonist promptly refuses, stating that his house is unsurpassed. Ji Xianxian, determined, mentions that he discovered unknown lands, developed by the demonic clan, and that he even defeated the members who were there. He asks the protagonist if he would like to join him in exploring these territories where priceless treasures may be hidden. The protagonist, with a disinterested look, questions whether the demon clan is really so weak as to allow Ji Xianxian to invade their lands without resistance. The provocation makes Ji Xianxian furious. The protagonist clarifies that he is not underestimating the Immortal Mansion sect, but he believes that the demon clan is much more powerful than everyone thinks. If this were not the case, the immortals would not worry so much about them. Ji Xianxian explains that the real demon clan is imprisoned in the north, but its disciples still spread their ideologies throughout the world. The strongest member they encountered was at the 9th level of the Mahayana realm. The protagonist becomes serious for a moment, but soon turns around and points to the public transportation sect, bidding farewell to Ji Xianxian. After some time, with the pots already empty, Ji Xianxian, while tidying up, asks if Fang Liang is someone close to the protagonist. He replies that they are not that close. Ji Xianxian reveals that Fang Liang was recognized by the heavenly immortal mansion and received special treatment, even more than Ji Xianxian himself. She stood out after defeating one of the sect's greatest geniuses in a battle, leaving everyone speechless. Ji Xianxian mentions that it is a relief that the protagonist is not close to Fang Liang, as he plans to teach her a lesson, since the elders are starting to compare them. Suddenly, the protagonist remembers something and reveals that Fang Liang is his disciple, warning Ji Xianxian that if he dares to touch her, he will be ruined. Ji Xianxian's expression changes completely. Cut to the dark sky, where a portal opens. A gigantic hand emerges and lightning illuminates the scene as several creatures pass through the portal. Among them is the commander of the demon clan, Lord Blood Prison, at the 9th level of the Mahayana realm. He mocks the fragility of this world, but is surprised when divine chains emerge from the portal, destroying the creatures. The powerful hand begins to concentrate energy, dispersing the divine chains. The surviving creatures thank it, and the hand warns that the clan is not welcome in that world. They must quickly gather information about the divine immortal mansion and avoid using the power of the 9th level, or they will attract the punishment of the heavenly Tao. Lord Blood Prison is ordered to find the place with the most providence in the world and destroy it. He agrees, and the portal closes. Lord Blood Prison's gaze sweeps across snowy mountains and villages, until he finds a place with the inscription, "Cultivate diligently and become immortal." He smiles, satisfied that he has found what he was looking for. At this moment, the protagonist feels a wave of impending danger. He wonders why he is so restless, while his disciple also feels the same way. Describing a feeling of repression, as if something big and evil is coming towards him. The protagonist's system appears, notifying him of an invasion of the mortal world by the demonic clan. Considering that even the system is alarmed, the protagonist decides to choose the second option. Continue cultivating and avoiding trouble, in exchange for receiving a mystical inheritance, the heavenly invitation technique. Imagine having a power that allows someone to call you back, wherever you are, and you can return within an hour. The protagonist has just discovered that he has this ability, but decides to study it later. Meanwhile, the system warns him that someone very dangerous is coming. The Lord of the Blood Prison of the 9th Mahayana Kingdom. Without wasting time, he informs his disciple that a member of the fearsome demonic clan is invading. This means that a catastrophe is approaching. He warns, "Run and warn the Cloud Head." Worried, she asks what he will do. With a determined look, he answers, "I have some pending matters to resolve. Tell Cloud Head to buy time." 30 miles away from the pure Jade sect, Lord Blood Prison watches the place with disdain. These cultivators are weak. He mutters, puzzled that this place is so blessed. Could this be a trap? Before he can delve deeper into his thoughts, Cloud Head appears out of nowhere. With a fierce gleam in his eyes, he prepares his power. The protagonist really isn't normal, he thinks. If he hadn't warned me, I would never have noticed this intruder. Summoning his spear, he glares at the enemy. "So you are the much talked about real demon?" Blood Prison is surprised. How does he know? But there is no time to question. Cloud Head attacks with ferocity, causing the ground to tremble. The two face each other with an intensity that makes rays of energy shine on all sides, as mountains are reduced to rubble. "If my master's plans have been revealed, we are in danger," thinks Lord Blood Prison. During the battle, Cloud Head taunts, "You are nothing special," and throws your spear with force. But Blood Prison, determined, dodges and promises to fight for real. "Let's end this quickly," he says, before both collide with an overwhelming force that illuminates the entire sect. The protagonist's disciples, astonished, wonder what on earth is going on. Meanwhile, in a simulation test, the protagonist mutters, "Impossible." He watches in disbelief, as even the most powerful attacks fail to stop the monster. Back in the real battle, Cloudhead also finds himself perplexed. "The most powerful attack doesn't work," he exclaims as the monster mocks. "It's impossible for a weakling like you to cause me fatal damage." The demon asks if Cloudhead is finished, as now it's his turn. A dark and menacing aura begins to surround the monster. And Cloudhead, on guard, realizes that this sinister energy is spreading throughout the sect. All members they watch in terror, and when one of them tries to call for help, he realizes he can't move or breathe. "Use the breathing technique," the elder shouts, but it's too late. Suddenly, several spears of power emerge from portals in the sky, pointed directly at the sect. "This demon is really powerful," Cloudhead admits, feeling his movements grow slower and slower. "In 10,000 years, I've never faced someone so terrifying." The monster just smiles and says, "My domain negates any power in this world. The lives of everyone inside it are in my hands." Cloudhead's servants, in desperation, suggest that he use his dragon form. He agrees, releasing his spear, which dissolves into thin air. The confident monster thinks that the Cloudhead has finally surrendered, but he is wrong. The Cloudhead decides to fight seriously, releasing incomparable energy. With a macabre smile, he transforms into a colossal three-headed dragon, whose presence is so overwhelming that it lights up the sky with a gigantic explosion. The surprised monster mutters, "A real dragon?" Here, without hesitation, the dragon launches a devastating attack. And for a moment, the entire sect seems to stop. When the dust settles, the disciples are finally able to move, their eyes wide with shock and awe. Cloudhead's attack split the sky in two, just like Saitama would do. Cloudhead, who has now transformed into a dragon, declared that he used all his strength in that strike. Even if the monster didn't go to the sky, at least he must have been injured. But reality can be quite disappointing. The monster emerges from the smoke and comments that he expected more from the dragon, saying that its power is still far from being comparable to that of a real dragon. Despite being a dragon, the monster takes out a weapon and attacks again, resulting in another huge explosion. Amidst the chaos, one of the dragon's heads begins to release ketchup from its mouth. We go back in time a little to see Cloudhead being informed about the presence of the blood prison monster. The protagonist's disciple warns him that the master has sent her to delay the monster, but he expresses his insecurity, saying that he does not know if he will be able to contain the monster without accidentally defeating it. With a determined look, he declares, "I will win." The astonished disciple responds, "You will die." We return to the present, where Cloudhead, now in his humanoid or cloudoid form, admits that he was wrong and was unable to hold the monster. At that exact moment, the monster notices someone's presence and comments that, as he imagined, there was someone else. Cloudhead cries upon seeing the protagonist and apologizes for not being able to do more. The protagonist praises Cloudhead, saying he managed to hold off the monster long enough. As the monster watches, he wonders if the protagonist is being affected by his expanding domain. The protagonist calmly steps into the air and utilizes the reincarnated sword intent. The monster, surprised, he can't believe he's using this technique in the mortal world. The protagonist appears before him and states that he made the right choice. For the monster must be perplexed now. He then sticks his middle finger in the monster's nose and comments that the monster's technique is still a mystery, causing him a huge headache. The protagonist reveals that he fought him 4 times and developed 2 different shortcuts. As the monster is incinerated, he wonders how the protagonist fought it 4 times, but without getting an answer. The protagonist just turns the monster into a slime, and the whole action only takes 2 seconds. The Cloudhead, witnessing all this, he thinks, the master is scary as hell. The system indicates that the Cloudhead's favorability has increased. But the protagonist can only think that his middle finger is a mess. The damage caused by the fight between Cloudhead and the blood prison monster. Cloudhead is sweating with nervousness, while people thank him for saving them, but also complain about the destroyed mountains. The old man asks what the protagonist thinks of the situation. The disciple responds that the master ordered the Cloudhead to take full responsibility for the damages. So the old man decides to leave the task of replanting the mountains to Cloudhead. To his surprise, we later see him with a hoe and a sign next to him that says, "Everyone is responsible for taking care of nature." Cut to the protagonist entering his house. He asks a soul in his hand why it came here. The blood prison monster's soul explains that it was just passing through and had no intention of hurting anyone. The protagonist, angry, shows his veiny middle finger and says that he is not afraid of death. The blood prison monster's soul, terrified, confesses everything it knows. The protagonist asks if her master sent only a single demon to the Mahayana realm, and if the demon clan is really that weak. The blood prison monster, embarrassed, reveals that the others went to the heavenly immortal mansion and that many beings are above the Mahayana realm. They only sent demons of the 9th level of the Mahayana realm to avoid detection by the heavenly laws. The protagonist reflects that if he eliminates the soul of the blood prison monster, his masters will probably send someone more powerful. He imagines his disciples being captured by the demon clan and concludes that his strength is still insufficient. The soul of the blood prison monster interrupts his thoughts, saying that the strongest member of the demon clan is himself, as he is at the edge of the mortal world. In truth, the fearsome demon clan had already been defeated in the Great War. Their powerful cultivators were sealed in the 6 paths of reincarnation, turned into mere ghosts. These spirits were bewitched by the ancestors of the demon clan and forced to become true demons. Upon hearing this, the protagonist smiles, stating that he already has all the answers he needs. The blood prison, terrified, begs for mercy, but the protagonist is already preparing his power. Meanwhile, a system notification appears. The blood prison has developed a star of hatred for the protagonist, even though he is on the verge of death. This detail makes the protagonist reflect on whether perhaps keeping this monster around could be useful in the future. The demon, with almost cute eyes, thanks the protagonist for his generosity. But as soon as he finishes speaking, the protagonist immediately seals him and warns that, if the demonic clan tries to infiltrate again, he will be used as a hostage. If he cannot win, he will simply gather everyone and flee. The scene changes to Cloud Head, sitting and head down. Two figures approach. The chicken and the dog. They mock Cloud Head, who becomes enraged. Chicken and dog? They are further angered by Cloud Head's presumption for being in the Mahayana realm and having fought someone strong. They claim that the protagonist only needs to teach them a little more and they will soon be there too. The protagonist's disciple intervenes, telling Chicken and Dog to shut up, as Cloud Head's opponent was indeed strong. Cloud Head, relieved to meet someone with common sense, swallows his words when the disciple claims that he was defeated due to the difference in power. Another disciple agrees, saying that one cannot rely on external forces, and goes to Fang Liang to instruct him on how to cultivate properly, for he is the only hope. The three disciples behind them get the feeling that he was talking about them. Suddenly, a figure with several weapons on his back arrives, commenting that he heard about the attack on the sect, but is informed that it has already passed. The protagonist calls everyone together, and a powerful aura emerges from the cave. Everyone becomes alert when they realize that someone is coming out of there. Cloud Head observes, thinking that the person does not seem strong, but their aura makes him uneasy. Upon seeing the figure, he feels as if he has found something incredible, almost like a new blanket being opened. Only one word comes to mind to describe the person before him: cute. He even thinks of the names of his children with this person. But the protagonist interrupts, explaining that the person is, in fact, a boy. We go back in time to see the protagonist analyzing the divine invitation technique, which consists of two incantations, primary and branched. The guest must master the primary incantation and condense the core of the technique, while the inviter must learn the branch incantation and condense the avatar of the technique. With this, the guest can be summoned from the core to the avatar and enter battle. The protagonist realizes that this technique has no user restriction, meaning that he could suffer from exhaustion if he teaches it to everyone, as they could call him at any time. Determined to avoid this, he decides to only teach it to his students. That way, if they face unsolvable problems, the protagonist can solve everything quickly. He also considers teaching the technique to Xing Hongxian, but soon realizes that she would only call him to ask things like, "Husband, did you miss me?" or, "Husband, come quickly, I miss you." Just thinking about it makes him feel discouraged and decides to reformulate how he will share the technique to prevent miscarriage. With his divine vision, the protagonist realizes that his disciple Morone Qi has returned and decides that it is a good time to teach the Tao. At this moment, Suki is meditating when the protagonist calls him, informing him that it is time to leave after a long period of seclusion. The scene cuts to the protagonist, telling everyone to get along with Suki, who still does not believe that Fang Liang is a man. He even asks if Fang Liang has a male organ and, when he confirms that he is indeed a man, panics. Galinha encourages him not to focus on the person's gender. The protagonist explains that he sent Suki into seclusion for having infiltrated the demonic cult. But now that peace has been restored, everything will be explained to everyone. Su Qi is relieved by these words, and the protagonist sends him to speak to his fellow disciples. In a lively moment, the group's dog praises Suki for taking down several members of the demonic cult. The Cloud Head is impressed, and meanwhile, the chicken delivers a gift to Suki, celebrating the fact that he is the 10th member of their force. As everyone celebrates, the protagonist silently reflects. The blood prison mentioned that this mountain has the greatest abundance in the world. He wonders if this abundance is enough to overcome the challenges faced by Su Qi. The disciple, who was previously a plant, asks about the second thing the protagonist promised to mention. Since he had mentioned two pieces of news, the protagonist replies that he will teach a mystical power that can save lives, but that it should only be used in situations of extreme danger, as the power will grant immense strength. However, he warns that the consequences are unpredictable, as they will face their greatest nightmare after learning this power. Fang Liang questions whether the nightmare is a non-existence or something they fear the most. The protagonist, somewhat disconcerted, reflects on his own invention and wonders how he should know the answer. Ignoring the doubt, the protagonist emphasizes that the power should only be used in extremely necessary situations, and expresses his hope that everyone will remain alive to achieve enlightenment and longevity. Everyone is excited, but Cloud Head, somewhat downcast, worries that the protagonist is disappointed with the last fight, and thinks he does not deserve to be there. However, the protagonist approaches him and the yellow chickens extend their hand and invite everyone to join them. This touches the Cloud Head, to the point that the system registers an increase of 5.5 stars in the protagonist's favoritism rating. The protagonist asks everyone to sit down to begin training. The chicken claims that her understanding is the best and promises to follow the protagonist for as long as necessary. However, 8 years later, she seems exhausted, as does her companion. The protagonist, irritated, asks how it is possible that they are learning so. The dog, with an ice cream in hand, reveals that Fang Liang, Morong Qi and Su Qi have mastered the power in just 3 days, while these two took 8 years to understand half of the power. The dog comments that he managed to master the power in 10 days and even had fun while learning. The chicken, crying, says that she prefers to stay by the protagonist's side so she doesn't have to use the invitation power, which only makes the protagonist even more irritated. The system informs that a providence has been detected, but the focus shifts to one of the protagonist's disciples, who reports that they haven't been able to catch any fish again. Su Qi mentions that it's been 8 years since they saw a fish, and Fang Liang suggests that something might be wrong with the bait. Suddenly, someone senses something and asks, "Senior, why are you here?" The answer comes with a smile from Tu Linger, a senior at the 9th level of the amalgamation realm, a somewhat enigmatic rank. In chapter 171, the protagonist examines Tu Linger's information in the system and wonders if her strength really matches what the system says. Since she came from the heavenly immortal mansion, he suspects that her intentions are not, and decides to face her in a system simulation. In the blink of an eye, in the simulation field, the protagonist realizes that he was thinking too much. Tu Linger is defeated with his sword energy alone. He discovers that, despite her soul being the ancestor of the great Magus soul, her strength is relatively weak. As the chicken and her companion sleep, the protagonist informs them that they have learned enough and that they must leave, calling Fang Liang. He reckons that if the heavenly immortal mansion only needed to send a letter, they wouldn't have sent someone in person, so something must be going on. From the divine perspective, Linger talks to her disciples. Fang Liang asks what brought Linger to the pure jade sect, and she tries to answer, but suddenly senses something. Looking at the mountains, she asks Fang Liang if he knows their origin. Fang Liang explains that these are the mountains, cultivate diligently and become immortal, which explains the dense energy. Suddenly, someone interrupts and says that he is Fang Liang's master, so Linger must ask him her questions. The other 3 disciples arrive and offer help as well, but Linger only wanted to see Fang Liang, since she was sent to find the person in charge. From the letters that Fang Liang has been sending to the heavenly immortal mansion, Fang Liang asks if something happened to the heavenly immortal mansion. She revealed that the heavenly immortal mansion had been attacked by 10 demons from the demon clan, and many of the elders were seriously injured, almost on the verge of death. With this critical situation, she asked Fang Liang to introduce her to the immortal responsible for transmitting the information. Fang Liang was stunned, looked around with an apprehensive expression, and explained that she had already met this immortal a long time ago. But he had left, said that the pure jade sect could not help the heavenly immortal mansion in this disaster. Hearing this, Linger asked a surprising question. "Can I cultivate on this mountain?" Everyone was shocked. Fang Liang, surprised, asked if she wasn't worried about the danger the heavenly immortal mansion was facing. Linger replied that she was worried, but worrying wouldn't solve anything. She believed that it was more productive to focus on cultivating to help the mansion in the future. Everyone was even more impressed and agreed that it made sense. Linger then approached Fang Liang and asked if he hadn't promised that he would return when the heavenly immortal mansion was in danger. He confirmed that he had said so. But before he could say anything else, a chicken suddenly appeared, asking why everyone was already back and if they had caught any fish. Irritated, the chicken ordered everyone to go fishing and told Fang Liang that the Proto was calling. Fang Liang excitedly told her senior that she would check with the Proto if she could cultivate on the mountain. Linger agreed, thinking that she didn't expect that even with the world outside in chaos, the people on the mountain would treat each other like family. Meanwhile, the Prota's disciples were discussing whether they wouldn't return until they managed to catch some fish, which left Linger puzzled. The dense energy of the mountain made her wonder if it was related to the divine tree she saw in her dream. She thought that if she found this tree, perhaps she could learn more about the person behind Fang Liang's letters. The scene cut to Fang Liang explaining the situation to the Prota, who asked her what she thought of Linger. She, a little nervous, revealed that she didn't have a good impression of her. The Prota asked why, and Fang Liang explained that Linger was one of the elders of the heavenly immortal mansion, was in the top 10 and her ranking was lower than his. She was cunning and even tried to trick Fang Liang with a candy, pretending it was a cultivation pill. The protagonist commented that she liked to play pranks, which caused him to be unable to cultivate properly. Awkwardly, he asked if Linger had offended anyone with her cunning personality. Fang Liang replied that she had not, but said that she had grown up without relatives since she was young and was antisocial, which caused many to shun her. Because of this, she spent most of her life alone. The protagonist thought that since she had already grown up quite a bit, it would be difficult to wash her mind. And besides, being a disciple of the heavenly immortal mansion might attract unnecessary trouble. Thus, he decided that Fang Liang should reject Linger's request. Fang Liang, all excited, ran out, while the protagonist thought that it wasn't a pity. Since Linger frequently asked for help to escape from the heavenly immortal mansion, which indicated disloyalty, the protagonist observed the situation in the mansion through the system window and wondered if he should help them, especially with Ji Xianxian injured. However, he decided not to intervene, as they were only lesser demons, and he had already faced greater demons. Furthermore, he didn't want to draw attention to the Pure Jade sect and make it a target for revenge by the demon clan. If the mansion couldn't deal with the lesser demons, it would only show that they didn't stand a chance against a future invasion. Suddenly, Fang Liang returned, head down, and the protagonist, confused, asked what had happened. Fang Liang revealed that Linger did not want to leave and wanted to become the protagonist's disciple, which left the protagonist completely surprised. Linger began to talk about a dream she had a few decades ago, which seemed as real as an innate ability. In the dream, everything became reality. Because of this ability, she stood out as one of the geniuses of the celestial immortal mansion, and believed deeply in her dreams, until one day she dreamed of a divine tree that grew rapidly. The dream became increasingly clear and confusing, mixing past, present and future like a divine power, created by the great Tao. She always saw a distant silhouette that left her restless, unable to express anything. In the last dream, she saw Fang Liang kneeling. And suddenly, a bright hand touched him. Linger wondered what this meant. What if Fang Liang is the key to discovering the identity of the person who appears in her dreams as a mysterious silhouette? The scene cuts to Fang Liang, who reveals that her master has agreed to take her on as a disciple, but on one condition. She must kneel before a statue for 10 years. Fang Liang thinks that the protagonist is very clever, since no one in the heavenly immortal mansion would submit to such an absurd demand. But, to everyone's surprise, she begins to kneel and comments that someone capable of cultivating a mountain full of treasures must be exceptional. She believes that this person is probably the one behind the mysterious letters. Fang Liang, speechless, leaves and tells her to think whatever she wants, as she is going to dedicate herself to cultivation. 7 years later, Linger is exhausted from so much kneeling. The protagonist's wives, already tired of their own adventures, come across Linger completely exhausted, and realize that she is trying to become the protagonist's disciple. One of them offers spiritual energy, but a red aura emerges from Linger's body, indicating that she is rejecting the energy. Linger, grateful, says she doesn't need it and looks at the mountain, stating that there are only 3 left. One of the women becomes irritated and says that this method of selecting disciples must end. The 3 women leave, leaving some things with Linger, who is confused. Next, we see a chicken delivering books on the power of invitation to the 3 women. 3 years later, on the protagonist's mountain, he is at the top, serious, but suddenly lets out a cry of joy. He has reached the 9th level of the Mahayana realm. The system offers 2 choices, ascend to become an immortal or remain in the mortal realm and obtain a supreme treasure. He chooses the second option and gains the Emperor's supreme robe, which increases his defense and grants the Emperor's aura. Suddenly, his disciple appears and asks what he is doing. He does not listen to her and comments that the robe is not as discreet as the golden cicada's robe or the mixed divine robe. The disciple, amazed, asks if he has worn the mystical divine robe before. He answers yes and asks if she doesn't see him wearing it now. An awkward silence ensues and they both look at the screen, where the protagonist, irritated, questions what the artist did with his costume in all the previous chapters. The artist is being cursed by the very drawing he created. The disciple, with shining eyes, sees that the protagonist has changed his clothes and is wearing the divine robe. She orders Linger to be brought, as the decision about whether to accept her as a disciple will depend on her. Cut to Linger, still exhausted, as the protagonist's disciple arrives and says that 10 years have passed. She informs him that the protagonist has called her to climb the mountain. Linger almost cries, determined to take control of her life. On the mountain, the disciple explains that the protagonist has not yet made a decision about whether to accept her or not, and that she must follow the example of others and cultivate diligently, as the protagonist is in seclusion and she will have to wait a while. As they climb, Linger notices that the energy is becoming denser and wonders about the depth of Fang Liang's master's cultivation. The disciple talks about the divine tree, and Linger is shocked to see that it is the same tree she saw in her dreams. She wonders if Fang Liang's master is an immortal disguised as a mortal. Suddenly, the earth shakes and people can be heard running and arguing in the distance. It is other disciples of the protagonist, trying to catch a fish. Linger activates her power, prepares and launches a direct attack on the fish, which is immediately attacked by the chicken, which knocks it down with its strength and weight. They take the fish, and the chicken thanks Linger, promising that she will receive some of the fish. When it is cooked, Fang Liang appears and asks if the protagonist has let Linger become his disciple. She replies that she has not yet, and he asks if she intends to return to the heavenly immortal mansion if she is accepted. Linger says no, as she prefers the peaceful and secluded place where she is. Fang Liang notes that the heavenly immortal mansion has helped Linger for so long and asks if she will also betray the protagonist when her cultivation progresses. What is betrayal? Even if someone has left the heavenly immortal mansion, that does not make those people enemies. The goal is simply to cultivate diligently. Is this betrayal? Suddenly, a dazzling light descends from the sky. All disciples realize that this phenomenon only occurs when someone emerges from seclusion. Linger explains that finally Ji Xianxian, the greatest genius of the heavenly immortal mansion, broke its limits. She reveals that the only reason she didn't come back was not a lack of desire to help, but because the heavenly immortal mansion relies on Ji Xianxian to protect them. Fang Liang accepts this explanation, recognizing Ji Xianxian's talent. But another disciple claims that Ji Xianxian will never be a worthy opponent for her master. Linger refutes, stating that Ji Xianxian is more than capable of facing the protagonist, while, as she walks through the divine tree, she reflects on how frustrating it is to be one of the 10 strongest people in the heavenly immortal mansion, and still not compare to Ji Xianxian. Even if Ji Xianxian stopped cultivating for an entire century, being born in the same generation as him was considered a great misfortune. Cut to the protagonist, who according to his research, will be rejected by the heavenly Tao when he reaches the 9th level of the Mahayana realm. He wonders what punishment he will receive, but feels relieved when he realizes that the stone can deceive the heavenly Tao. However, he knows that if something happens, he cannot hesitate. The demon clan is getting more and more comfortable, and only a cultivation that surpasses the mortal world can keep your mind at ease. He remembers all the levels he has overcome until reaching Mahayana. A great energy emanates from him, advancing through the various levels. And he thinks that when he advances further, no current problem will be relevant. At night, on the mountain, a frightened chicken asks why the sky has become so dark. Someone suggests that it is a tribulation from heaven, but a green-haired disciple claims that it is not a tribulation, but a heavenly punishment. Everyone wonders what is happening in the protagonist's cave. They notice something strange coming out of it and wonder if the protagonist is advancing. They have never seen anything like it before. The master asks which realm the protagonist has advanced to this time, while his wife marvels at his unexpected feats. Su Qi suggests that they should first worry about how to protect themselves from divine punishment. Then, a bolt of lightning descends from the sky towards the mountain where they are. The lightning descends at speed, but suddenly stops as if lost, makes a sign in the air and returns to where it came from. The sun appears again and everyone is perplexed. The protagonist, meditating with his floating purple stone, wonders if this is what it means to be an immortal. The system asks him if he will remain in the mortal realm and continue cultivating. As he decides to continue, the system grants him a gift, the Great Imperial Phoenix, a supreme imperial defense treasure. The protagonist thinks that the Great Imperial Phoenix is quite similar to another treasure he owns and wonders why they are both the size of his hand. Meanwhile, the protagonist's designer is filled with pride. The protagonist realizes that, by becoming immortal, his soul is resonating with the earth and heavens, reaching an astonishing level of clarity. He feels that he can easily leap across galaxies and fly to higher realms. Activates the spirit of concentration, allowing his soul to travel the world, observing birds' nests, fish feeding, and even a bear writing a letter. He marvels at the fact that he is immortal and sees something that catches his attention, something strange about his disciples. Linger and other disciples are thinking about the Black Phoenix of Hell, and everyone is intrigued. The protagonist realizes that these spirits are his past lives, and notices something dangerous about Linger's shadow. He decides that he cannot accept her as a disciple, but something else catches his attention. The shadow is asking for help and thanking an immortal for coming to the mortal world. The protagonist wonders if the shadow is asking to be freed, as he can communicate normally with the protagonist. Still dealing with the residual soul that begs for help, he decides to postpone his intervention and heads to the immortal world to receive the baptism of the power of reincarnation. As he walks, he ponders whether he should head to the upper world or the underworld. In the end, he chooses to explore the underworld first, hoping to find the mysterious expert spy. Upon reaching the door to reincarnation, he peeks in to make sure everything is okay. With no bridges or the dreaded river Styx in sight, he considers himself lucky and comments on how rich and suitable the power of reincarnation is for him. However, he is frustrated by the randomness of the places the door takes him. As he enjoys the comfort of power, a hand mysteriously appears behind him. Immediately, the protagonist uses his 7 illusory steps to dodge, surprised to have been discovered. The expert spy reveals himself and asks if it is him again, assuring him that he does not intend to hurt him. Frightened, the protagonist wonders if she really won't harm him, and says that he didn't know that the mortal world had a talent like him, who surpassed everyone in less than 800 years, and can travel between realms. She thinks that he may be the person she has been waiting for, perhaps even longer than she imagined. The protagonist, stunned by the sight of so much ugliness, begins to bleed from his eyes. He questions what she wants, whether she wants to possess him or recruit him as a disciple. She reassures him, saying that she isolated the area so that they can talk freely. Straightening up, he introduces himself as Hanju and asks what she wants. He raises his aura-filled hand, opens a portal and explains that her job is to guard the Nair Bridge and monitor the cycle of death and life. Throughout the ages, people have called her Meng. The protagonist, surprised, asks if she is Mengpo. Amazed that he knows her name, Meng asks if he already knows the origin of the new disciple he accepted. Hanju feigns disagreement, and Meng warns that it is not wise to try to play dumb with her. Scared, the protagonist wonders if Mengpa, a legend and expert in guarding the Nairi Bridge, will discover his ability to see through the Great Wizard's origin. Fearing that this may cause him trouble, he only mentions not knowing her origin, but acknowledges her talent. Meng states that she is not there to question him and gets straight to the point. She wants him to help Linger become an immortal emperor. The protagonist, surprised, asks what kind of realm this is, if it is a term for the Golden Immortal Realm. Meng clarifies that the Immortal Emperor realm is above the Golden Immortal Realm. Hanju, in a soft voice, describes himself as just a nameless immortal. But Meng says that Linger is the reincarnation of the Great Magus, with the unique ability to foresee opportunities through dreams. This ability helped Linger survive the Great Calamity and get closer to the protagonist, believing that he can help her become stronger. Hanju, not knowing how to react, becomes uncomfortable. Meng tells him that he should not rush to refuse, as he has checked his past and found nothing but emptiness. However, even so, he became immortal and proved that his future is bright. She believes that someone like him could be the hope of the Magus race. Hanju wonders if the system obscured the divine will when he transmigrated and if Mengpa belongs to the Magus race. Meng states that if he helps Linger, he will become a benefactor of the Magus race. And if he fails in any ascension, she will resurrect him so he can start over. Hanju, excited by the idea of having an extra life, gladly agrees to help and asks for an additional favor. Resolve a problem with the upper heavenly court, who are trying to cleanse the immortal world, where he currently resides. Meng replies that she cannot help, as the upper heavenly court is in charge of the underworld, and as a subordinate, she is not allowed to interfere in such matters. Disappointed, Hanju understands, as he ponders the upper heavenly court's control over the underworld. Meng thinks for a moment, and suddenly suggests that since the mortal world is about to be destroyed, he could move to the underworld with her. But there is one condition: he must bring Linger with him. The protagonist, surprised, asks if he can also bring his other disciples. Meng smiles and says that he can, and he is overjoyed, as he now has an escape route for his disciples. In case his plan to save the Earth fails, Meng asks if he is satisfied with the life he leads. He answers that he is, and she adds that no one on Earth can match his talent, so in the future, he will probably live a lonely life. The protagonist stops laughing as he realizes that his soul is dissolving. He says that he still needs to return to the mortal world to adjust his cultivation and decides to end the conversation there. Meng asks if he agrees with her purpose, and he responds that he feels that he and Linger are compatible, so he will do everything he can to guide her. Suddenly, a system notification appears, informing him that he has developed a 3-star favoritism towards the protagonist. And the protagonist, still in disbelief, rubs his eyes to make sure he's not dreaming. Meng asks what power the protagonist used to enter the underworld, and if he created the technique himself. The protagonist wonders if he's seeing correctly. Meng continues, saying that if he's really that talented, then Linger is lucky to follow him. A large source of light emanates from Meng, and the protagonist can barely see anything. When he opens his eyes, he's back in his body and wonders if that was Meng's real face. The system appears and says that he's made another friend. The protagonist is amazed, because even the system can't unravel Meng's face. He remembers that the demon clan and the mage race are hiding in the underworld, and wonders if they will really be spared by hiding there. But then he remembers Meng's words about his possible loneliness in the future, and decides that if his disciples or friends die, he will ask Meng to revive them. We see two faces. The ugly side is Meng Po's, and the beautiful side is Hudningen's. 3 years later, we see mountains, a lake, and fish swimming. Someone throws something into the lake. It is the protagonist's disciples, worried because he has been in seclusion for a long time. Feng Liang hopes that he has not passed the 5th level of the Mahayana realm. Cloudhead reassures them, saying that even someone at the 9th level of the Mahayana realm would not be able to do that. Another disciple notes that the blood prison was also at the 9th level of the Mahayana realm, and that things have been strange since its elimination. A shadow of Cloudhead says that the protagonist has already reached the peak of the mortal level, then wonders why he hasn't ascended yet. Another shadow suggests that perhaps he wants to experience being invincible, but the third thinks it doesn't make sense for him to want that, since he doesn't come out of the mountain to show off. Cloudhead says not to be absurd, as the protagonist must have his own reasons. She is frightened at the thought that the protagonist might be at the 9th level of the Mahayana realm, meaning he is one step away from becoming an immortal. Suddenly, they hear the protagonist's voice, and the plant runs out. Linger becomes worried and wonders if he will really accept her as a disciple. We see the protagonist's profile and a screen showing his level. He celebrates because he has 1,294,000 of lifespan. And is even more excited because he is going to curse someone, since he hasn't done so in a long time. The plant interrupts him, asking what he was summoning, if he is cultivating or creating a new power. She asks what level he is at now, and he replies that it is not just one level. She is shocked by this. The protagonist explains that he still needs to spend more time in seclusion and asks the plant to deliver a message to Xing Hongchuan, asking him not to reveal to others that he has become immortal. The plant does not understand anything and leaves, while the protagonist reflects that, after becoming immortal, the world around him seems extraordinary, as if he had a new vision. He notices that the spiritual energy of the mountain is similar to the energy that emanated from him when he advanced, and concludes that it must be due to the Fusang tree, which emits not only spiritual energy from the earth and heaven, but also high-level spiritual energy, stronger than ordinary energies and undetectable to someone in the Mahayana realm. He wonders if this is the energy of the immortal realm. The protagonist is intrigued by a mysterious plant that attracts spiritual beasts, and wonders if this indicates that immortal spiritual energy is actually present there. He wonders if his 6 paths of reincarnation are as powerful as the Great Unity realms. If they are higher, he will have to postpone his ascension plans and decides to consult his older brother about it. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning strikes directly at the mountain, drawing the attention of the disciples. They are amazed, thinking that the protagonist must have advanced in his cultivation. The plant remembers that he had asked not to disclose his immortality and wonders why he doesn't want anyone to know about it. Meanwhile, at the Dao River, the protagonist meets his older brother. The brother, surprised and elated, upon seeing that the protagonist is in the loose immortal realm, asks if he has already ascended. The protagonist, calm, answers that he has not and reveals that the red bird is waiting for him in the upper realm. He mentions that he does not want to crash or restore his account and that he got lucky with an item. The brother, curious, asks what he wants this time. The protagonist wants to know the name of the realm that is above the loose immortal realm. The brother reveals that it is called the Great Unity of the Immortal Land, and begins to explain other levels higher than this one that will be known throughout the story. The protagonist considers that following the conventional path may not be necessary and asks if the legendary Zenith Paradise is on the same level as the Great Unity. The brother clarifies that it is not, and says that over the years, several cultivators have improved the value of the Zenith Paradise, creating new realms such as the Emperor Realm and the Deity Realm, between the Great Unity and the Zenith Heaven. The Emperor Realm is the achievement of the position of an immortal emperor, who can escape, pair with the laws of the heavenly Tao and travel freely. Even if an emperor falls, he can reincarnate without having his Tao heart erased. The protagonist, impressed, asks about the divine realm, and the brother explains that it is even more powerful, being able to even create worlds with its powers. and regenerate itself through the offering of incense and providence of the mortal worlds. It is rumored that the heavenly court, the Buddhist sect, and the divine palace all have cultivators from the divine realm, which maintains the balance between these great sects. As for the mortal golden zenith heaven, it is a supreme existence said to be above the 3,000 laws, capable of traversing time, space, and karma. The protagonist is fascinated and decides that his goal is to diligently cultivate until he becomes a heavenly golden zenith immortal. The brother praises him, but reminds him that he must first face the current danger, the heavenly court, which is about to cleanse the mortal world. They probably sent a great unity immortal or even a great unity celestial immortal to lead the attack. The protagonist feels disheartened at the thought. Meanwhile, his disciples discuss that despite their investment and hard work, the harvest was modest, only a small fish to feed more than 10 people. The protagonist ponders how the heavenly court can cleanse the mortal world. He wonders whether they will immediately destroy the earth or eliminate all living beings first, since creating a new mortal world takes a long time. He imagines that they can just wipe out all living beings and bring in new creatures from other worlds to populate the earth. In the heavenly Tao, all living beings are considered Tao, and when they die, the Tao disappears as well. A few minutes ago, the protagonist questioned whether the heavenly court really intended to exterminate all living beings, since that would mean the extinction of the Tao. His brother responded indifferently, saying that the court doesn't care because the impact of the providence is temporary and insignificant. The protagonist apprehensively asks if they are going to eliminate all the great sects in his world. The brother smiled and said that the protagonist's world was just one of thousands and that they didn't even need to send their main forces. Furthermore, the protagonist's world is low level, considered nothing more than an anthill for the heavenly court. Curious about the ranking of the mortal worlds, the protagonist is informed that he will find out when he ascends. Although somewhat disheartened, he thanks his brother and declares that no matter who they are just obstacles on the path to his longevity. His brother advises him not to overdo it, and the system points out that his brother's favoritism has risen to 3.5 stars. The protagonist, with his feet shaking, realizes that he is at his current limit and that he has not even noticed how far he has walked. He is so far away that he can no longer see his brother Gushin. He looks around and realizes that the number of people with high cultivation is increasing. His own cultivation, the highest in the mortal world, can barely keep up with others. He reflects that no matter how talented one is, there will always be someone stronger out there, and he wonders what his true limit of power is. Determined to find out, he begins to practice. The first step is to open a simulation field. He wonders if he can compete with a real immortal after becoming immortal. He gives his all in the competition, but unfortunately for him, he is instantly eliminated. Frustrated, he leaves the simulation field, and thinks that maybe he lost because the skill name was too long. His wife, always cheerful, arrives and he tells her that she is the person who matters most to him. She thanks him and says that since she has nothing to offer in return, all she can give is her body. The protagonist is left speechless, and the rest of the story is already known. Or do you want me to tell you the details? And Linger comments to Fang Liang that the protagonist's cave is very noisy, but he replies that he doesn't know why, and asks not to ask any more questions about it. The chicken suggests that since the protagonist cultivates intensely, he should also have fun once in a while. The plant, a little upset, tells Linger to get used to it, and she becomes embarrassed when she realizes what is happening. A month later, the protagonist calls some people to his cave. The master, the other girl, and the green-haired boy are impressed. The chicken asks how he can still speak so loudly, and the plant says that it was about to fetch its body. Everyone is curious about what is happening. Then, the divine tree appears and greets the protagonist, who is refreshed after a month of fun and reveals that it wants to teach Tao for a year. Some are surprised by the teaching time, others find it fabulous, and Linger remains embarrassed. She asks Fang Liang why he didn't tell her that the master was so handsome, and thinks that if she had known this, she would have betrayed the heavenly immortal mansion much earlier. The protagonist then announces that he will teach about the Tao of reincarnation, and everyone is amazed to learn this Tao and admires the artifacts he is using. The green-haired boy comments that the protagonist is more impressive than ever, and may have already become an immortal. The master questions how he can still be in the mortal world if he has become an immortal. The other girl says not to worry, as the protagonist is incredible and has a talent for everything. The plant says that he will begin teaching, and the system indicates that Linger's favoritism for the protagonist has risen to 5 stars. She is shocked by the rapid rise and thinks that Fang Liang's master is the person she has been seeing in her dreams. The protagonist, nervous, wonders if she is in love with his appearance and if he will be able to guide her. 6 years have passed. Under the shade of the majestic divine tree, the disciples are absorbing the master's teachings with fervor. Our protagonist, with a sword stained with red ink, smiles as he contemplates his masterpiece and declares that these are the little things that life is made of. He then takes a spoon and tastes a piece of watermelon, sighing in delight. With his sensual lips about to savor the fruit, something unexpected happens. A powerful wind rips the ground and a celestial being descends from the heavens. It is Ji Xianxian, who lands dramatically and summons Guan Yu for a blood duel. Sorts. Linger watches the scene in amazement and is even more shocked when she sees the furious master break her spoon. Angered, he advances towards Ji Xianxian, while his disciples, perplexed, they ask who Guan Yu is. One of the disciples reveals that he is one of the master's secret identities, asking them to keep it a secret. Ji Xianxian, with an arrogant air, claims that he has already defeated countless demons from the Mahayana realm and his strength is no longer the same. The master, unperturbed, challenges him to a duel to the death, and Ji Xianxian is surprised by his opponent's calm. He wonders if the master is just pretending to be calm. The duel begins, and a burst of energetic light emanates from the master. Ji Xianxian, terrified, feels as if he is paralyzed, like prey in the jungle facing a predator. The master's strength surpasses anything he has faced before, and the sun and moon seem to change color. If it weren't for the divine technique that summoned the help of heaven and earth, both he and the heavenly immortal mansion would have been destroyed. Now, unable to activate his divine technique, Ji Xianxian finds himself at the mercy of the master. The master reminds Ji Xianxian that at one point he claimed that life and death meant nothing. With a defiant smile, he uses a special treasure for the first time and binds Ji Xianxian with demonic ropes. The challenger screams for freedom, while the master, in a disdainful tone, comments that he could have defeated Ji Xianxian several times before he came to him. He warns that it is unwise to think oneself invincible just because one has gained a little power, and that the upper world is full of dangers. If Ji Xianxian ascends now with his limited power, his stay will be short. Linger, hidden behind some trees, watches in shock as Ji Xianxian is instantly defeated, looking like a child in front of her master. She wonders why she hasn't been accepted as a disciple yet, and considers that perhaps she needs to do something impressive to earn his approval. Wondering whether to use her body or offer a treasure, she blushes at the thought, and concludes that giving a treasure would be more painful to her heart than offering her body.